This podcast is for singers who have music in their soul and want to be in the spotlight. We are INVICTA Vox Radio.
Hey everybody, what is going on today? Welcome to another episode of INVICTA Vox Radio. As always, we are your hosts, Mike and
Angie Lee.
And today we're going to be talking about something that occurred over the weekend. So we always try and help out our local high school Battle of the Bands. We like to give back to the community, try and sponsor the event. And really, it's just kind of fun. It's interesting perspective for us because it gives us an opportunity to see what the kids are doing these days. But
gotta stay relevant in our old age.
Yeah, but we got into a situation, right? And the kids there are good, but like most people in high school, you think you're a lot better than you are in life. And
At everything. Not just like music, but at everything.
Yeah, and that's not to say that, I mean, some of these kids are intensely talented. Because
especially for their age. Like some of these bands that we watched in our local community were killing it.
Yeah, because I sat back and said, oh, damn, like what would have happened in my life had I dedicated myself to something.
And been that good at that age.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's just awesome to watch that.
For real.
But,
so shout out to you guys. Good job.
Yeah. But then the problem comes in, right? And this is where you're like, hey, yeah, you guys are, gonna. So they're a band, or there's lots of bands, and they're trying to do stuff with their music at this point. And you're like, okay, I got some tips, some pointers. We own a studio. We do all these things. And they're like, no, I'm good.
Yeah, we're above that. We don't need help.
We're already better than everybody else around us. And it's like, okay, dude, but you're pulling from a small sample size. You're the big fish in a small pond scenario.
The best at your high school.
Yeah, and granted, the high school here,
they're pretty great,
pretty talented.
The bar's very high.
But still, it's like, okay, take a minute, slow your roll there, buddy. You still have a long way to go.
You're 17.
Like, from this one performance, I can probably give you 15 notes that would make you way better at what you do.
Yeah, it's that ego getting in the way of, okay, I've arrived. And I feel like at some point, every artist gets to this point, whether they're, killing it at their local Battle of the Bands at age 17 or they're 30 and they're like, yeah, I'm a 10. I am a 10 in every category. I have reached my ceiling. And then they become very uncoachable and unteachable. And it's easy to see this and paint this picture with a high school kid who thinks he's everything and has a huge ego, because we've all been there. But the thing is that we all have to consider is that we all get to that place in our lives where we're like, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. Like, I'm good. Thanks for your advice. Or, yeah, I don't need to have a consultation with an expert that can help me be better because I'm good.
Right.
Or, you know what? I don't want to play these little shows because I'm better than that.
Yeah.
That one happens a lot too.
All the time.
And we see this a lot with our high school students where they're like, yeah, well, there's only going to be 20 people at this show, so I'm too good for it. Or there's only going to be 100 people at this show, I'm too good for it. And I'm going to wait till the big shows come. And it's like, yo, those big shows aren't coming until you play the small ones. You got to put in your dues, or you got to pay your dues and build yourself in the community. You got to network. There's so many pieces to that on top of you developing yourself. So the problem that we run into at any level where you're an egotistical high school kid, sorry guys, you just are. It's cool though. It's part of the journey. Or you are, like I said, like a 30-year-old who's like, yeah, I've been doing this and I'm good. I'm good. So that's what they say, right?
Yeah.
No, man, I'm good.
Always.
I'm good. So what do you say to that, Mike?
Yeah. Good is the enemy to great.
Yeah.
Right? Just flat out. If you're good, you'll never be great.
You just put the nail in the coffin.
And so it's just like this with anything, right? As soon as you've assumed, okay, I'm good, you've now cut off all the progress and growth that you're going to have, other than what you can do on your own, which is very slow. Mm-hmm. And yes, you'll improve very slowly, minute increments at a time, right? Where you could open up your world to much faster growth, whole different experiences to really success down the line if you would just be able to be humble in that moment and just go, you know what? Yes, I'm good, but I'm nowhere near where I want to be. Yes, I'm better than a lot of the bands that I'm playing at, but I'm not looking for that, right? So just to go back to your your thing of like, okay, yeah, I don't want to play at these small shows of 20, 50 people. And it's
I'm
like,
too good for an open mic.
but the funny thing is it's like, well, what's your average audience size right now? And it's like, well, I don't really play shows. Okay, doofus. Like, now it's time to realize that you aren't bigger than that. You aren't better than that. That is where you have to start. But by you getting in your head and thinking, oh, I'm better than that, I'm good. Yeah, you're really setting yourself up for failure, because it's like you said, this is a journey. It's part of the process. Having those arrogant moments or those moments where you shut yourself down from growth, they're part of the journey. But at some point, you got to get over it. You got to get beyond it and start to step forward. So that way you can really open up the doors to what you ultimately want, which I hope is
to be the best
much
you can get.
bigger than that, rather than some fictitious dream in your head of what you actually are, right? Like,
not living in reality with where you're actually at.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I'm a rock star in my head, but I don't play shows in real life. It's like, then have fun in your imaginary life with your imaginary
killer,
money
bro.
and your imaginary groupies, dude.
Killer car, man.
Yeah.
It's like, no, that's the thing that you're pointing out is good is the problem, because once you are good and you have shut down that growth, you've shut down any possibility for expansion. And let's take the 17-year-old egotistical kid again, for example. You shut that down and it's like, yeah, I'm really good at this level and I'm better than anyone around me who all the other 17-year-olds. It's like, well, good for you. You're freaking 17 though. You have your whole life ahead of you still. And if you're good and you're not looking for the opportunity to expand, you will never be better than you are now. And that's the thing you really have to get into your head. You might be the best in your circle right now, but you won't be a year from now if you don't continue to move. Expansion is the game. You're going to hear me say that a million times. If you continue to listen to this podcast, if you are coming to our studio, I will tell you that the whole point of this life for me and for my studio and as being an artist is to expand. The second you're good, there's no more expansion. The second you're good, all humility goes out the window. The second you're good, coachability is gone. And if you're not coachable, you can't grow. If you're not coachable, you're not going to be the best, because someone will outbeat you. They will. They will outgrow you. They will out-expand you. And then, and it's not like you have to be the best in the world, but if you want to actually take this seriously, you better shoot for that in what you are doing. Expanding to be the best self, not better than others, but the best version of you. And so that's the thing we really want you to consider. When we say humble, we're not talking about humble yourself and, demean yourself or anything like that. It's like, dude, just have your heart be open to growth. Open to the fact that maybe you haven't hit your ceiling. And if you have hit your current ceiling, how are you going to get through it to make it your new floor, so that you can go to the next level? And so that's what we're here to talk about, you guys, because good isn't good enough.
Yeah.
It's not good enough unless you're okay with staying the same for the rest of your life and being passed by everyone else.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like, so really, yes, you'll stop and then other people will pass you up, right? And you're like, well, what happened? Well, it's easy. Right? They just allowed themselves to continue to grow.
It's expansion.
And so if you hit that point where you're like, yeah, I'm good, I'm awesome, I'll challenge you to do this. Have a little courage, push yourself to the next level, and find out how mediocre you actually are. Because, yeah, you're awesome at a certain level. Go to the next level, and you're at the bottom of the totem pole. It's like...
and maybe that's the problem, is they're afraid to explore that.
Right. But it's funny.
Because the ego will hold you back.
Sure.
From exploring that, because you want to stay the best.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's like middle school, right? You start out middle school, you're like, oh, all nerdy. You're like,
all the big kids are like beating up.
Yeah. And then you get to the end of middle school or junior high, and you're like, oh, yeah, I'm running this school. I'm so cool. And then all of a sudden you go to high school and you realize, oh, dang, I'm
bottom of the totem
pole again. And that's just what it is. I mean, that's just an easy way to look at it.
And then you go to college and the same thing happens again.
Yeah, from level to level to level, where you just see that, right? Same thing with sports teams or whatever else you're involved in, where you naturally progress from one level to the next. But in the artistic world, in this music scene, people often like to just sit there and be the big fish in the small pond and pretend how awesome they are, because you can just sit at a certain level without pushing yourself to be better than that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of that too is sometimes it's harder to see the levels, right? It's kind of ambiguous.
Right.
Because it's like, well, you know, if you're not playing the high school sports thing, right? Or even the high school music thing where it's like, oh yeah, I was in choir in junior high and then I did choir and I had to audition and do it all the way through high school or band. And then I had to do it again for college. And so there's like a measurable level of what levels are essentially and like your skill and on all that stuff. But I think it's a little harder when you're in the popular music scene to go, yeah, the next level for me is this.
But
that's why you have to be able to set up measurable targets and find people around you. Surround yourself with people who are on your same level, but people who are also ahead of you so that you can go, yeah, that's where I want to go next. And never settle with just being good, with just being cool with where you are. Because, again, it's not just about being passed up, but it's about being irrelevant. Eventually, you're not even relevant anymore. You're not even good enough to play at the next level.
Right.
And you won't be if you stay where you are. And so I think that's where what it all comes down to is stay coachable, let go of your ego, be humble enough to be coachable, find mentors that can actually guide you to the next level, find other artists who are ahead of you in the game and who can give you a leg up. Surround yourself with people who are at your level so that you can have networking and a crew to come up with in the industry. And then expansion. The goal is always expansion because good will hold you back from being great. And that's where we want to go.
Well, I think you summed that up quite well.
Well, thank you.
And and with that, we'll just throw out the question of the day. And this one's pretty simple. Where is your ego, your pride holding you back? Where are you good and not allowing yourself to go to great?
Yep.
So get out your notebooks, write in the comment section on YouTube or wherever else you found this.
Declare
it out, throw it out there. Again, if you're able to do it on YouTube or just somewhere where it's more social, it gets that out in front of everybody. And it's one thing to write it in a notebook, and it's good. If that's where you're at, then write it in that notebook, keep it to yourself and work on it. But if you can declare it to others,
another person,
yeah, especially if you find a community of people, it helps take you to that next level on your own. So I would encourage you to do it in a social setting. But again, write it in your journal at least.
And once you understand where you're being held back by your ego and where you're settling for good instead of great, ask yourself, what can I do today to move the needle? What can I do to shift that now? And go ahead and write that down as well. And with that,
as always, if you found this helpful, share it up. We're just trying to help other people. We're sharing the things that we found that help our artists, that really create growth and try and get people to the next level. And that's it. So if you like it, just let somebody else know about it.
Subscribe.
Sharing is caring. And we care. All right, everybody. Until next time.
Peace.